It seems like just yesterday that I did an announcement video on my channel that Elite Dangerous was going to be getting a new update that gave players space legs. Well, this month on the 29th, Frontier is releasing Elite Dangerous Odyssey, the update that promises to finally put us on the surfaces of moons and planets across the universe. But what's in this update, and is it the Star Citizen killer that everyone is hyping it up to be? Hey guys, Morphologist here, and over the course of this video, I'm going to be answering just that. I'll bring you guys up to speed on Odyssey, taking you through all the information that the developers have shared thus far about its scope and gameplay. In addition, I'll help to interpret what much of this probably means for its initial release, because sometimes it's not about what they're saying, it's about what they're not saying for an update. By the end, you'll have a pretty good idea of what to expect and how Odyssey might compare to games like Star Citizen. But after I break down this exciting new update, consider starting an Odyssey of your own through Audible, the sponsor of today's video. I've already been on their app for years, accumulating an awesome library of science fiction audiobooks that have entertained, enthralled, and inspired me. And some have even gotten me through some harder times in recent years. Membership gives you a free credit every month that you can use on one of literally thousands of their best-selling audiobooks. So go to audible.com/morphologist or text morphologist to 500-500 to start a 30-day free trial and get one of my favorite science fiction audiobooks of all time, Dune by the legendary Frank Herbert. Seriously guys, this is a science fiction cornerstone. If you haven't listened to this yet, you really gotta check it out. So on the visual content side, Frontier has been rather sparse on what they're willing to show us. Thankfully though, there's been a plethora of information gained through various interviews and text-based releases on what to expect from this Odyssey update. That's not to say though that the information that they provided through their videos is limited, it's just that there aren't many of them. They've recently posted a video showcasing one of the missions that we will encounter when the update goes live, which is what you're now seeing on the screen. This video has been a great companion to a lot of the information that I've found via their web posts, which is what I'm going to be using to inform the commentary while you watch this play in the background. Now right off the bat, this is a pretty informative video about what we can expect when we land at a pre-made location. It looks like we have to land at a prescribed location and that we can't just land anywhere to approach on foot, which may mean that these locations are in fact instanced and not in the multiplayer environment. One other thing that you may have noticed is that there weren't any AA defenses or defensive ships. This is also something that they wanted to note that would be in the game at some location, so you may have to fight your way to the ground in the future. This is pre-alpha, so it doesn't have everything. Now, according to what I've found, they're calling this a raid, and it's one of 3 types of missions that we're likely to encounter. Assassinations, where we kill an NPC or NPCs, scavenging, where we explore a wreck or derelict station for goodies, and finally, a mission type called Power Core missions, which is actually the one they're showing us in the video, where they're tasked with going and either turning on or shutting off a power core at a given outpost or station. These ones, according to Frontier, will be quite dynamic, with a chance to encounter civilians, guards, scavengers, pirates, and sometimes they'll even drop off like big NPCs, tier 5 NPCs, that'll really kick some butt. One of the other things that they noted though is that these missions won't necessarily be purely combat if that's not something you want to do. You'll notice in this video that they try to approach it quite cautiously to sneak around the guards, and apparently they want to make it so that you don't necessarily have to kill everything. You can sneak in, do the objective, and get out if that's your style of gameplay, or you can just do the run and gun if that's what you want to do instead, but each will have its own consequences and benefits. Now this video also is showcasing some of the things that we can expect to do while we're on the ground, like medical gameplay, general murdering, and even cutting tools, which is what we're going to see a little bit later for opening doors and panels. According to Elite Dangerous, this mission will be a 3-person encounter where each member can play a different role that helps the team in a different way, so classes if you will. It looks like they have something like an engineer role, which is great for non-combat, and then something like a medic role, and probably also something like a general combat role. The HUD in this video is also really informative, and it actually looks pretty good. It's got a compass and heading, longitude, latitude information, which is something I really wish we had in Star Citizen, and there's also a temperature reading you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner. Now this ties into something that players will have to deal with when they visit planets and moons. These are various effects that you'll find during missions or just general exploration, such as temperature, radiation, fatigue, and oxygen levels, which are all going to be really impactful on how well you're able to perform your mission or task. In addition to this, how much they affect you will be determined by the type of suit that you've taken with you, of which there are 3. combat, exploration, and scavenging, with the fourth one being your base flight suit, which really doesn't have any abilities at all. Each of these suit types will have their own perks and resistances that can be further augmented and upgraded via an upgrade system similar to what already exists at present for things like ships in game. This might, for example, give you more resistance to one of the 3 types of damage you'll receive in ground combat: ballistic, laser, and plasma. And according to Frontier, their aim is to make ground combat as polished, diverse, and strategic as their current space combat is, which is pretty well communicated by this video. Something many of you may be curious about these missions and other ones like them is whether or not players can suddenly show up and interrupt your mission. Well, the thing is, they've never actually talked about PvP in Odyssey. They've not once mentioned the possibility that a player can interrupt you and suddenly kill you, at least in the official stuff that I've found. This leads me to believe that at least for missions, there is zero possibility on this initial release to run into another player while doing a mission, because I believe they are probably instanced. And if you guys don't know what instancing is, it's basically where when you connect to a given area like a dungeon, you are sent to a separate server from the main server that you were previously on. This has traditionally been done for 2 major reasons. The first is for performance. The less people on a server, the better the server performs. The second is for practicality. In traditional MMOs, there aren't that many places to visit, and so you may have multiple parties who want to access the same location simultaneously. This just makes it possible for them to do so. And there is precedent for this in Elite Dangerous as it stands today. If you don't know, Elite Dangerous is already instanced. No matter where you go, you are on a given instance of the area you are visiting. And there could be potentially many different instances of up to 32 players per instance. Which means if you're looking for a specific person and they're not on your instance, but you're both in the same area, you may not actually see them. I know all that might seem quite complicated, and it kind of is. Basically, what I mean is that it's not a gigantic unified server like what Star Citizen is trying to do. But then you might be curious if somebody can still shoot you, perhaps from the air. Can somebody just fly by and bomb you? Well, this is something that I'm not really too sure on, to be honest. It did look like we could see the dropship flying away after the players here disembarked, but there's not been any direct interaction between the ship and the ground, so that also leads me to believe that there probably isn't going to be any direct interaction permitted, at least at this stage, between players in space and players in mission areas. And this really could be either a good thing or a bad thing depending on what your expectations for gameplay are. Some people like the chance encounter with a random player that can either end in them helping you or randomly killing you, which some consider griefing, while others like to play in sectioned areas of games where they can be rest assured that they and their group of friends won't be rudely interrupted by some griefer or kid screaming on their microphone. And I gotta say here, I really do understand both perspectives, but I do have a preference for one, which is something I will go over in the concluding part of this video. First though, I want to address the final part of this video, which answers a big question that I had about how immersive Elite Dangerous was going to be compared to Star Citizen. Was it going to be more like Star Citizen, where you had to, hop off a ramp or climb down a ladder to get onto the surface, which can be pretty immersive, especially if you are shooting off of a ship while you're flying? Or is it going to be more like what we currently have in Elite Dangerous, where if you're driving a ground vehicle, you just fly under the ship and you suddenly appear inside of it with a UI screen and not actually any 3D interior environment? Well, as you can see here in the video, it looks like it's pretty much what we have right now with ground vehicles. You just walk underneath the ship and you suddenly appear inside of it, which is, I gotta say, kind of disappointing, but it is what we should have expected given what we have currently in the game with ground vehicles at the moment, which pretty much lines up with the Q&A that I found that stated that Odyssey will not feature walking in ships. But that doesn't mean that they won't have it in the future, just that it's not currently on the roadmap for them. So yeah, not quite as immersive as I was hoping for. But that's not the only thing to expect out of Elite Dangerous Odyssey when it drops later this month. According to Frontier, we're also going to have a pretty nice exploration system associated with it on its first launch. You're going to be able to land on planets, and if you are the first person to set foot on that planet, you're going to have a footfall record put in that system stating that you were the first person to find it. And it also seems, though I may be mistaken here, that you will be rewarded for being the first person to set foot on newly discovered moons and planets, so this also adds an incentive for doing this exploration. In addition to this, you'll also be given a sampler tool, which allows you to take samples of rocks, sand, fauna, and other stuff on planet surfaces to be able to record and eventually sell at stations for people who are curious about given elements on planets. I guess this is going to tie into the economy overall. This has meant that many of the planets and moons, at least the ones that are visitable, are also getting a lighting and graphics overhaul for the Odyssey release, meaning stuff is going to be generally a lot more pretty than it is today. This also includes better atmospheric effects, with a special emphasis placed on the look of sunsets, as they're aware that people are going to be taking a lot of screenshots and they want them to look the best possible. Now, if you've been listening very carefully to the way I've been wording the video so far concerning missions and PvP, you may have noticed that I've said that I don't believe that there's going to be any interaction with people outside of mission areas and people inside of them. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be any PvP at all. It doesn't look like there's going to be a way for them to prevent you from finding somebody on a surface who's exploring and killing them. This seems to be something that is currently possible if you're flying around and see somebody driving around on a moon or planet surface, so I can't see this being much different for somebody walking around on a moon or planet surface. So just be aware that this is a possibility, but given the fact that the universe is so big and there are so many instances, the likelihood of this happening is still probably pretty small. Finally, in addition to all the stuff that I've talked about thus far in the video, they're going to have social spaces. So places like starports, spaceports, and outposts that you can visit to buy and sell goods at. However, they did not make any note of these spaces being spaces that you can interact with other players in, at least not ones that are in your party. To be clear here, guys, I could be wrong on this, but because they're not advertising this point in any of the official materials, I don't believe it's going to be possible. If it were possible, they would be talking about it because it is a really cool feature to be able to randomly run across somebody in a bar and perhaps strike up a conversation or invite them to your party to go do some missions with. So if this really ends up being the case, I gotta say it's pretty disappointing. And if I'm honest, if the only way that you can actually interact with other people is to be in a party with them, I'm actually quite concerned, because while I've been able to party up with people in Elite Dangerous, I've yet to get multi-crew to actually work. And if you don't know, multi-crewing basically works like this. You apply to be on a ship that has the capability of having multi-crew with another player, and if they accept, you appear in their ship. Every time I've tried this, I've gotten disconnected, and I think this might have to do with my ping. So if they're using this kind of system to be on a ship to deploy on the ground, I might not actually be able to do any of these ground-based missions together with a party. I may only be stuck doing them solo, which I'm not even sure is possible. Overall though, I think that my concerns here are probably a little bit premature. I have yet to play the game myself, and it's something that I really am looking forward to checking out the 29th of this month. Whether or not this is going to be a Star Citizen killer for me though is now made pretty clear by the information that I've found. If you want a vast universe to explore with sparse PvP and player interaction, Elite Dangerous may be what you're looking for, because it's got a little bit of both. You can play by yourself and never see another human soul, or you can meet up with some friends and do a little bit of PvP. Star Citizen, on the other hand, is going to be a universe full of people that you're doubtlessly going to interact with, for better or for worse. Furthermore, their design goals for immersion are very different. Elite Dangerous wants to deliver an experience that maybe is a little bit more approachable and less simulation-like, whereas Star Citizen is going the full mile, making things maybe sometimes a little bit monotonous when you just want to get into your spaceship. But some people, like myself, prefer that. In the end, I strongly believe that neither of these games is going to kill the other. Quite the opposite, in fact. I think they're going to benefit one another by bringing more attention to a much beloved genre of games, a multiplayer online science fiction universe. Something that we broken-hearted Star Wars Galaxies fans can agree we've seen too little of. So I hope to see you guys back here again as I check out Elite Dangerous Odyssey on the 29th of March. And also, don't forget to claim your free audiobook and that 30-day free trial by going to audible.com/morphologist or by texting morphologist to 500 500. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.